This is episode 1 of the Oregon Family Law Guy podcast. My name is Hansry LaForest, and on this show, we are empowering the good people of Oregon by helping them learn the ins and outs of family law. As I mentioned, my name is Hansry LaForest. I'm a new Oregonian, just recently moved to the PDX or Portland area from out of state. And part of what we're going to do on this show is we're going to talk a little bit about my background, the stuff that I've been doing before I moved to Oregon, the stuff that I'm going to be doing here now that I'm in Oregon and in my new home state, and some of my visions and thoughts about what I think this show is going to be and what I hope this show will be for you, the people that are listening. Just a little bit about myself. I am originally a New Yorker, was born in Chicago, but spent most of my formative years in New York, so I consider myself a New Yorker. Stayed there for my college and also my law school training, which was both at Fordham University. Upon graduating Fordham University and also Fordham Law School, I went to work. I worked as a prosecutor for a couple of years. After that, I moved with my wife to Dallas, Texas, where she was a med student. When I went down to Dallas, Texas, I immediately joined up private practice, and I did a couple of different things. I did criminal defense work. I also did family law work and a little bit of business litigation. Fast forward a couple of years, my wife accepted a residency program here at the Oregon Health and Sciences University, or OHSU, as I'm sure those from the Portland region know. And after that, we packed up and we moved again and moved specifically here to Portland for that reason, which is where I'm at. My wife has started up her residency program, and I'm in the process of starting up here with a family law practice. Now, that's just a little bit of background about what I do, where I'm coming from. And so the question that next is raised is why I started this podcast. Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I started this podcast to create a resource for people that are from Oregon that need a little bit of help, if you will, about understanding some of the nooks and crannies of family law, which is there's a lot out there. There's a lot of confusion that I've seen in the areas of family law, and a lot of people just need help. A lot of people just need a little bit of an explanation as to how family law works, especially if you have, some sort of custody dispute, some sort of property dispute, visitation dispute. There can be lots of unanswered questions, and I know that a lot of times that can be scary for a lot of folks, not having those questions answered. So my goal in trying to start up this podcast is to try to shed some light on some of those unanswered common questions, so that you or your loved ones or your family members, whoever you're listening for, have a sense of the way the process will work. And based on that sense that I'm hoping that you're going to get from this podcast, you'll be able to at least have a little bit of guidance as to how to go about whatever legal issue you're dealing with, specifically in family law. But the second reason is it's a way for me to get to know, number one, Oregon family law as it's applied over here, and number two, the great people of Oregon. They call it the practice of law for a reason. It is because it is a practice. You are going out, and every single time that you interact with a person in the court, a client, someone who has a question, a family member, you're learning something new every day. And so my hope is that through my interactions with you, that I'll learn about what's on your mind, what's on your concern, and hopefully it'll help me sharpen my skills as an attorney. And in addition to that, it'll help me also know what's on the minds of Oregonians everywhere, not just when it comes to family law, but when it comes to just living in the state, some of your struggles. Family law is a little bit different here than it is in Texas, and family law in Texas is different than it is in New York. So I'm just hoping through our interactions that I can learn a little bit from you just as much as I hope that you can learn a little bit from me. Let's talk about what this podcast is not. Okay, this podcast is not going to be legal advice. Okay, and there's a reason why. The reason why is because you can't give legal advice just through a podcast, really. The law is a little bit too complex for just reducing something to just an answer that you get listening to a 10 to 15 minute to 20-minute podcast. And as a matter of fact, I am not admitted in the state of Oregon. I have submitted my application for reciprocity here in Oregon, and I do believe that the Supreme Court should be issuing my admission within the next couple days. I am admitted in New York, I'm admitted in Texas, I'm admitted in New Jersey, but not in Oregon. So I cannot give legal advice as it stands right now, and I won't use this platform to give legal advice. If you're looking for legal advice, what I would suggest that you do is that you consult an attorney. Reach out. There are plenty of attorneys who practice family law here in Portland, here in the Tri-County area, whether you live in Multnomah, Clackamas, or Washington. Do that. And I hope that that maybe if you listen to this podcast and there are some things that you need further explanation on, you could reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to forward your information to another attorney, or when the time comes when I am admitted, which I anticipate will be in the next couple weeks, maybe we could talk offline. But please do not rely on this podcast for legal advice. This podcast should not be considered legal advice. It is educational in its purpose. So with that being said, that is pretty much it for episode 1. As I mentioned, my name is Hansery LaForest. I am hoping that you will get just as much out of this podcast on all your family law questions from me as I hope to get from you. As I work on it right now, we're going to be setting up a Facebook page, and we're going to make this podcast available on iTunes. So I'm hoping that this will be accessible to you, and I'm hoping that we can continue this dialogue, and I'm hoping that this will be a great resource for you as you go along.